is 40 cents to $7 per ton lower. The nearby March contract, it's down $3.90 at $683.80 per ton. Losses in Chicago soybeans and soy oil accounted for spillover selling pressure. Overbought price sentiment and farmer hedges at nearby highs also weighed on prices. However, a weak tone in the Canadian dollar this morning provided some support, with the currency losing nearly 3/4 cent. Concerns over tightening Canadian canola supplies and the need to ration demand going forward also remained supportive. In the U.S., soybeans and corn were lower while wheat was mixed. U.S. markets will be closed Monday for Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and positioning ahead of the U.S. long weekend was a feature there. Soybeans, they are down 13 cents in the March contract at $14.18 per bushel. After hitting their best levels in more than 6 years this week, beans were due for some profit-taking. Strength in the U.S. dollar index was also bearish, as that rising U.S. currency may cut into some export demand. Soy oil is posting the largest losses of the soy complex, with declines in crude oil adding to the weakness there. However, ongoing uncertainty over South American weather conditions did keep some caution in the bean market. Corn, it's also correcting lower ahead of the weekend, down 4 cents in the March contract at $5.30 per bushel. Corn futures have climbed by roughly 50 cents per bushel over the past week, seeing a bullish reaction to the tight U.S. stocks numbers out on Tuesday. While corn was due for a correction, the underlying fundamentals remain supportive. The International Grains Council released updated production estimates today, lowering their estimate on world corn production by 13 million tons. That would, but at 1.13 billion tons, that would still be up from the previous year. Wheat was mixed. Minneapolis spring wheat up 2 cents in March at $6.43 per bushel. Kansas City also higher, 2 cents at $6.39 per bushel. But Chicago wheat down 3 cents in the March contract at $6.67 per bushel. News that Russia is planning on raising wheat export taxes once again was supportive. The International Grain Council raised its estimate for world wheat production this year by 3 million tons at 768 million. That's a look at the ICE futures and U.S. markets for Friday, January 15th. In Winnipeg, for Markets Farm, I'm Phil Franz Workington.
See more and do more in a new 300 Series compact track loader from New Holland. Its industry-leading 360-degree visibility is truly something to see at Butler Farm Equipment in Fort St. John. With its reverse camera and 8-inch multi-function LCD display, super boom lift technology, rock-solid stability, and redesigned controls, you'll work with greater speed, safety, and precision. Maximum productivity starts with a clear view. Stop by Butler Farm Equipment in Fort St. John today and see how a new 300 Series compact track loader helps you do more.
The opinions expressed during this show do not represent those of this station. If you've missed any of this show, you can follow the podcast at Energeticcity.ca. Now, an in-depth look at the news and information shaping our community. This is Moose Talks with your host, Doug Craig, on Moose FM.
Welcome to another episode of the show. A little later on, we're going to be joined by Heather Sjoblum, the curator of the Fort St. John North Peace Museum. She is going to tell us a bit about a new exhibit they're going to have coming up. Actually, I think it's open now, but we'll get to that in a little bit. It's about railroads. Very excited for that part of the show. But first, we're joined to talk a bit about a local tech company that recently won an innovation award for its work in breaking down a freshwater pollutant with custom microbes. The company is called Fixed Earth Solutions, and joining me now is their president, Tim Repas. Oh, we're having some technical issues. Just a moment there. We'll have Tim on in just a second here. There he is. I'm just going to turn on Tim's microphone here. Hi, Tim. There we go. Oh, now I can't hear you. Now we're having lots of issues. Here you go. Tim, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
There we go. Having a few technical issues this morning. Tim, thank you so much for joining us today. Tim, why don't we start a bit about what you do at Fixed Earth Solutions? What are you guys about?
Yeah, so we're a small biotech company. We've been in business for just over a year now, but some of the technologies we've been working on for 10 plus years. And a big part of what we do is we go looking for microbes to do things like degrade pollution and help plants grow better on reclamation projects and in agriculture. This particular technology revolves around a pollutant called PFOS,
Hmm.
perfluoroalkyl substances, which are kind of this growing pollutant that's of a huge concern.
I see. I want to get to this kind of innovation that you won an award for. So you kind of touched on it. Why don't you explain a bit about what PFOS is a little more, and then tell us what this innovation is that you guys happened to come up with that won an award.
Yeah, so PFAS are this kind of family of really stubborn and really toxic chemicals. They were widely used in a lot of industries, anything from manufacturing Teflon and Gore-Tex, which are things we all use every day, all the way up to being used in firefighting foams at airports and Air Force bases.
Hmm.
Um, the tricky thing with them is they're just really stable in the environment. They're really hard to get rid of, and they're toxic in concentrations down at parts per trillion.
Wow.
So just tremendously low is where they start harming people. So you kind of combine those two things, and you get this huge issue. Um, so our innovation, and because they're really hard to break down, is looking for ways to break them down. And we kind of believe nature usually finds a way to do these things, and it's
Hmm.
just finding the right microbes and the right bacteria that can do that. And that's what we were able to accomplish. We were able to come up with a way to get these microbes and prove in the lab numerous times that they are breaking down these substances, not forming anything that's more toxic than what we started with.
Hmm. I
So,
mean, that's fascinating. These microbes, did you, the story that we wrote on Energeticcity.ca referred to them as custom microbes. I don't know if that was your word or not, but I mean, is this, you found it by just kind of trial and error? You found a microbe that would eat this substance essentially? Or did you kind of have to invent one, for lack of a better word?
yeah, we try to avoid engineering or genetically modifying where we can.
Hmm.
And so we go looking. The reason we kind of use the word custom is we go looking for them on a case by case basis. So rather than having one microbe we works everywhere on the planet, we go looking for them at each place that needs them, and proving up in the lab that they work.
Wow, that's fascinating. That must be a. Uh, I guess my next question would be, how do you find out where these microbes are at work? Because I mean, you're as I understand it, you're kind of a small outfit, right? So you must be borrowing and using kind of work that other people have done to be able to find out that these microbes work in these places and don't in others, right?
A little bit, for good and bad.
Hmm.
It's kind of most people say that these compounds can't be broken down by biology, so there's actually not much work to go off of. So it definitely took some trial and error to piece together how to do this, and uh, some learnings along the way of the best way to do it. But yeah, we find most sites that have this pollutant will have a microbe that can get it. It's just knowing how to get it out of the soil.
Wow. And then now that you've got it, it's about, I guess, kind of, again, for lack of a better word, mass producing it so that it can do it quickly and efficiently and when you want it to at a site that needs it, correct?
Absolutely right, and it's growing up a big enough quantity to get out to these sites, and of course one of the big hurdles too is because there's kind of this idea that these compounds can't be broken down.
Hmm.
It's really hard to convince people that you found a way to do it. So that's actually been one of the biggest challenges, just getting them out of the lab and into the real world. But we've been fortunate that we have some people in the States who have been willing to hear us out and give us a try.
Okay. I want to get back to that in a second, sort of making this a practical application. But the competition itself, how do you go about getting into this? Did you hear about it? Is it sort of like part of your search for funding to kind of make your or situation work? Or did it inspire you to do this when you heard that there was a competition that was looking into solving problems of this nature?
Yeah, this particular competition kind of expects you to already have a half thought out idea to pitch to them.
I see.
So we had at least one microbe in our collection that we knew was working for us. And we were referred to this competition. Someone we know said, you should apply for this. And so we did. And of course, part of it is one, to show the world that this does work, but also to go hunting for some funding, of course, getting through early stages of being a company where that's a little challenging.
Oh, that's fascinating. Then let's go back again to sort of the practical application of this, right? You've got this microbe, you've proved in the lab it's worked. How then do you, as you say, with the difficulty of convincing people that it's not just magic, it's not fantasy, that it actually works, how do you get it out so that it can start doing the business that it was designed to do?
Yeah, a lot of cold calls. As always, thankfully, we've got some partners in our business who seem to enjoy doing that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happier in the lab here. And the big thing is finding that first client hear us out, which we had the state of Michigan pick up the phone and believe that we weren't crazy. And they've actually gone and started referring us to other people and saying, no, this does work. And when you have someone with that much clout kind of helping push you along, that's been a tremendous help.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's definitely the hardest part. A lot of cold calls and a lot of people saying that can't be done and hanging up on you. And you just smile and move on and hope the next guy's nicer.
I mean, is the motivation behind finding something like this? Would you say it's like an environmental, like you're like, we want to try and do some good in that, we want to clean up these sort of sites where these spills happen and they leach toxicity in the soil? Are you motivated by, we want to do good for the earth? Is that sort of your primary reason for wanting to find solutions to these problems?
Yeah. I mean, people should have clean water and all ultimately, right? I think we all want that. For me personally, a little bit is I grew up in the state, New Jersey in particular, where PFOS is a monumental problem. We grew up drinking PFOS contaminated tap water. And so it hits pretty close to home. And that was a big part for this particular problem, of wanting to solve it and actually do some good.
Now, and then in a situation where, again, just to bring it back locally, is this something you think could see an application in a place like Fort St. John where, we have lots of water, we have lots of oil and gas and resource extraction going on, where spills can happen and yes, that can happen? Is this something that's viable to be used around here, perhaps?
Yeah, we've already, I think a huge part of why our business is succeeding is we've had a lot of local support, and companies here have been receptive to giving this sort of thing a try, and at least seeing if it can work for them. Some of the oil and gas companies have been really supportive and saying, we want to try the new things you're coming up with because it either does a better job or saves us some money or a bit of both. Why wouldn't we give it a try? And if it doesn't work, we can say we put in an effort. So yeah, we found Fort St. John to be incredibly supportive, and that's why our lab is here and why we plan to be here for the long haul.
Okay. And one final question for you. I saw that as I understand it, was you guys were founded in 2019, so you haven't been around that long, the company anyway, or the business, whatever you want to call it. Developing this solution, finding these microbes, did it really only take that long to kind of make this happen? It sounds like something that would take, years and years and years to do.
Yeah, part of it is I've been working in some form of microbes for 10 plus years now. So having the skill set going in definitely helps and does let you do some of it quicker. But a few of the microbes we're putting out to market at this point have been getting worked on for 5-10 years. Other ones are a couple weeks old. So.
All right.
Yeah.
And the winnings kind of from the award you guys got, what are you going to use that for?
Yeah. Well, there's always, of course, rent and things like that,
Sure.
But there are opportunity for some equipment upgrades and the chance to hopefully, again, we have some clients where if we can get down there and meet them in person, look at their site, I think we can get work, get this out into the world, and it's a chance to buy the plane ticket, fly to these places and talk to people.
Excellent.
As much as COVID will let us.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And that should get easier as the year goes on. Well, Tim,
hopefully.
I really appreciate you taking some time to talk to us about this. It's fascinating stuff. If you want more information, you can read the story we posted about it at Energeticcity.ca. Tim, thanks for talking to us about this today.
Yeah, thank you again.
You're very welcome. That's Tim Repas, the president of Fixed Earth Solutions. All right, we're going to be talking to Heather Sjoblum with the Fort St. John North Peace Museum right after this on Moose Talks.
Who's a good doggy? The top 3 pets have been chosen in the voting process for Pet of the Month. Fort St. Johners, it's your turn to decide which pet gets that title. Here's one of the finalists.
Luna likes racing around the house and performing sneak attacks on unsuspecting passerbys. When she isn't doing that, she becomes a regular shoulder parrot or box/bag cat. She also likes knocking mom's plants down and causing a mess.
Vote right now at moosefm.ca under contest. The owner of the pet that gets the most votes will win a $100 gift card to the North Peace Veterinary Clinic. Thanks to you.
Right now, Panago has 3 new crave-worthy pizzas featuring delicious artichokes. Try them on the Caprico's. Wait, how do you say this?
Capricciosa. It's capricciosa.
Oh, thank you. This meaty classic comes loaded with pepperoni, Genoa salami.
No, it's Genoa. Emphasis on the J.
Okay, gotcha. Genoa salami, olives, mushrooms, and gooey mozzarella. Try the new Capricciosa pizza. How's that?
Perfetto.
Just $17 for a medium.
Magnifico.
Order yours at
Panago.com.
Nothing worse than hearing part of a conversation.
I said, let's put the project on.
If the cell service at camp or in the field sounds like an old movie that cuts in and out, then Petron can clear it up today. With a cell booster, your calls will be clear of...
Pardon? What did you say? Huh?
And...
Can you hear me now?
A booster in your facility will give you a clear, concise conversation that can't be misinterpreted. Call today and we'll clear up your call right away. Petron Communications, a clear choice for the North since 1978.
Watch this show live on Facebook or download the podcast at Energeticcity.ca.
Welcome back to Moose Talks. We're going to talk a bit about the North Peace and railways now with the curator of the Fort St. John North Peace Museum, Heather Sjoblum. Heather, good morning. Welcome to Moose Talks.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. I'm grateful you took some time out to talk to us about this today. So before we talk about the exhibit specifically, I thought we'd talk a bit about the museum itself, if we could. I imagine you haven't been around at the museum since it opened, but maybe you can tell us a bit about the history of the museum in Fort St. John and kind of what that's about.
So the museum is run by the North Peace Historical Society, and they were formed in 1965.
Oh, wow.
It was a group of individuals interested in preserving the history of the North Peace. And their first museum was at Peace Island Park in Taylor, and that sort of existed throughout the 60s and early 70s. And as one of the buildings there fell into disrepair and another one had burned down, they started to look for a new home. So they had a temporary home here in Fort St. John in 1982 for the 40th anniversary of the Alaska Highway, where whole wheat and honey is. There was a little Alaska Highway Museum, and sort of during the late 1970s and 1980s, they were looking for a permanent home, and they applied for a bunch of grants, and that's how we ended up with the land that we have today, and our building was completed and opened to the public in February 1984.
Oh, well, there you go. It was kind of an association, so it was mostly, and always has been, volunteer run, hasn't it?
And that is correct. Our board of directors is all volunteers, and then usually throughout our history we've had one full-time staff person and then some part-time summer students and so on.
How do you acquire the information, and how does the association acquire kind of the information and items that you put on displays for exhibits? Is it all kind of donations that you rely on from people in the association and people in the community when calls are put out for it, or is there other methods of getting it?
Primarily, it's what people choose to drop off at the museum. Sometimes we do put out calls, such as calls for items related to COVID-19. But for the most part, it's what people donate to us, and then the items go through our acquisition committee, who vets them to make sure that we don't have similar items already in our collection because we have limited space, that the items we're accepting are in good condition, and most importantly, that they have some kind of history in the North Peace.
That's fascinating. Well, why don't we get to this great exhibit you have just kind of started up, I believe, in January here. It's called... I don't have it in front of me, but it's about railways in the North Peace. It's a fascinating subject, eh?
It's called a rough journey because it was a rough journey in more than one way. Both in terms of railways coming to this area very late, and as well as people traveling on not very comfortable sounding trains.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly upper, I guess top class. I can't think of the name of it, but not as comfortable as you would like it to be, I suppose.
It's not even the first class cars. It's that some of the people took in Alberta, where the permanent way was so bad that it was really rocky. So it was hard to stay in your bunk, for example, as you were sleeping, because it was a 25-hour journey from Edmonton to the Peace region of Alberta. So not very comfortable compared to some trains today.
I did want to ask you quickly about this because one person called in this morning, Roger, who's a big fan of my show. He said apparently he'd heard this story that you could stand on the back of the caboose and look out behind you and watch the tracks coming up out of the muskeg after the train had gone over. Have you heard stories about how it was just muskeg, as you said, rocky parts? It's tough place to put a railway to.
Yeah, that's not one of the stories I heard, but I'm not surprised. I had one account of a railway in Alberta in the 1910s where apparently the train car was so bad that a fellow passenger of this lady who writes the story was taking a screwdriver and putting screws everywhere so the car didn't come apart on them.
Amazing anyone made it here alive. Well, there's more to that story. So the railway came from Edmonton, you said, kind of to the Alberta piece. Then what happened? How long did it take to get from there to finally kind of make it to Dawson Creek and us and beyond?
In 1931, the railway finally reaches Dawson Creek.
Wow.
And everybody in the Rippas is excited because at least you now, as a farmer, don't have to take your grain all the way to Hythe or to Spirit River in Alberta. But still, it's a long journey. If you're trying to take cattle to rail, for example, the Westergaard family took their cattle and made it a 10-day trip to Dawson Creek so that their cattle had plenty of time to graze on the way and wouldn't lose weight. And then it's an even longer wait for us to actually get a railway that crosses the Peace River. And this is the Pacific Great Eastern Railway. The first spike for that railway went in 1913, and it reached Quesnel in 1921, but they couldn't cross the Cottonwood River. They had all sorts of technical challenges, so it didn't even reach Prince George until 52.
Wow.
So finally, in 1958, the train arrives in Fort St. John, and it's super exciting for farmers. No longer do you have to haul your grain to Dawson Creek. It's estimated that it saves farmers at least $50, not to mention the trip there and back to Dawson Creek. And it's also super exciting for people in this area. The Alaska Highway News at that time brags that you can finally step on a train in Fort St. John and step off in Vancouver. But unfortunately, that passenger service was short-lived. There were 3 trains a week that you could take to Vancouver, and then about 4 years later, in 1962, the passenger service comes to an end. So you have to then take a bus to Dawson Creek and another one to Prince George, and then catch the train down. So although the train continues to play an important part in industry here, we just never got the full benefits the way other communities did.
Full passenger benefits. Do you know how long the train ride from here to Vancouver was at the time?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
That's
it
okay.
was
Yeah, I imagine it would take some time. Well, why don't you tell us a bit about what we can expect to see in the exhibit? I know obviously some of the stories that you've just talked about will be available to be read, but what are some of the items you've been able to collect that will help us see the visual part of the history of the railway in the North Peace?
So our biggest item on display, which we're really happy that we finally have room to exhibit it somewhere, is a pretty giant British Columbia Railway sign. So the British Columbia Railway replaced the Pacific Great Eastern Railway. So this sign kind of caps off our exhibit, I guess. We also have a variety of smaller items. We have a railway spike. We have a couple of railway lanterns, 1 lantern and 1 lamp. And we've turned the explanation of our lanterns into a hands-on activity. So you can try out with a prop lamp some of the hand signals that they would have used in the early days in the railroad yards.
Oh, wow, very
we also have a variety. Yeah, we have a variety of smaller booklets and so on, employee handbooks, and maps and timetables, as well as a bunch of historic photographs of the trains in this area too.
Wonderful. Well, it's like everything at the museum is fascinating. Whether you think of yourself as a history buff or not, it's definitely worth checking out. Heather, why don't you tell us when the museum is open for people to come by, what it costs to get in, that sort of thing?
The museum's open Monday to Friday, 10 to 4, and Saturday, 11 to 3, and these reduced hours just give us time to clean, thanks to the pandemic. And admission is $7 for adults, $6 for seniors, $4 for students. Children 5 and under are free, and you can also get an annual membership and visit the museum for free anytime within that year.
Wonderful. And you've also got a great gift shop, don't you?
We do. Lots of great books there, including books on railways, and lots of souvenirs and gifts as well.
All right, Heather. Well, I appreciate you taking some time to talk to us about this, especially since the museum's open right now. So you had to make it happen, do some shuffling around to make it happen. So thank you, Heather, very much.
Thank you.
That's Heather Sjoblum, the curator of the Fort St. John North Peace Museum. We'll be right back to wrap things up on Moose Talks after this.
This year, M&M Food Market is celebrating 40 years of helping Canadians put delicious meals on the table. They offer the best easy-to-prepare, top-quality foods with personalized customer service. They also offer one of the best franchise packages out there for you. Ever wanted to help Fort St. Johners put delicious food on the table? Are you hungry for new opportunities? M&M Food Market has a franchise opportunity for you right here in Fort St. John. Email store337@mmfoodmarket.com or visit their location at the north end of the Totem Mall.
You're shopping around for an automobile?
Come see Fort City Chrysler.
You're trying to find the very best deal.
Looking for a fine pre-owned vehicle? Fort City Chrysler has cars, trucks, minivans, and SUVs, four-wheel drive pickups, and diesels too. Many with remaining factory warranty. And they're all quality inspected and ready to go. At Fort City Chrysler, you're buying from your hometown dealer. No pressure, no hassles, just honesty and integrity. Only at Fort City Chrysler, only in Fort St. John.
Quiznos has brought back their Greek gyro. Enjoy seasoned beef and lamb, crumbled feta, banana peppers, crisp lettuce, and red onions topped with tzatziki sauce on a flatbread, sub, Sammy, or in a salad. The Greek gyro is back. Try one today at Quiznos, beside Walmart.
Our community first. This is Moose Talks with Dub Craig on Moose FM.
Our thanks again to our guests today, Tim Repas and Heather Sjoblum. If you missed this episode, or if you'd just like to see it again, the video will be available to watch again shortly on the Moose FM or Energeticcity.ca Facebook pages. You can also download the podcast version of this show at Energeticcity.ca/Moose Talks. That does it for this episode. Adam Rayburns pushing the buttons behind the scenes. I'm Dub Craig. Be fine.
Join us next Friday at 10 a.m. for another episode of Moose Talks, a weekly talk show about Fort St. John and the North Peace.